Picture this, it's 2045. You're sitting in a restaurant on Mars, looking out at the rust-colored landscape, and the waiter brings you a salad. Fresh lettuce, ripe tomatoes, crispy cucumbers, all grown right here, millions of kilometers from Earth. Sounds like science fiction, right? Well, it's closer to reality than you might think. Right now, there are plants growing in space. Real crops, cultivated in microgravity aboard the International Space Station. Astronauts are literally eating vegetables that have never felt Earth's gravity. And this isn't just a cool science experiment. This is the beginning of something that could fundamentally transform humanity's economic future. Because here was the thing most people don't realize. Space exploration isn't really about rockets and rovers. It's about logistics. It's about economics. And the single biggest logistical challenge facing our expansion into space? Food. Every kilogram of supplies sent to the International Space Station costs about $10,000. Let me repeat that, $10,000 per kilogram. A tomato that costs you $2 at the grocery store? That same tomato, sent to space, costs thousands by the time it reaches an astronaut's plate. Now imagine trying to build a permanent settlement on Mars or the Moon. If you have to ship every meal from Earth, it's not just expensive, it's economically impossible. But what if we didn't have to ship the food? What if we could grow it there? Today, we're diving deep into the emerging world of space agriculture. We'll explore how scientists are learning to grow food in the most hostile environments imaginable and uncover the mind-bending economic implications of farming beyond Earth. This is the story of how humanity is learning to farm the cosmos. And trust me, it's way more fascinating than you'd expect. So, why is growing food in space so incredibly difficult? Well, imagine you're a plant. You've spent millions of years evolving on Earth. Your entire biological system is designed around certain assumptions. Gravity pulls water down through the soil. The sun rises and sets in a predictable cycle. The atmosphere provides carbon dioxide. Now, suddenly you're in space. There's no gravity, so water doesn't flow the way you expect. On the ISS, the sun rises every 90 minutes. There's no atmosphere, no soil, and cosmic radiation is constantly bombarding you. As a plant, you'd be completely lost. But here's where it gets interesting. Plants are actually incredibly adaptable. Scientists have discovered that they can grow in microgravity. They just do it weird. In space, roots grow in all directions, searching for water, and stems use light as their guide instead of growing up. The real challenge isn't whether plants can grow in space. It's whether we can create systems that allow them to grow efficiently, reliably, and economically. Let me tell you about Veggie. It's NASA's vegetable production system aboard the International Space Station. Since 2014, astronauts have been growing lettuce, cabbage, and even flowers using this specialized garden box with LED lights and a controlled atmosphere. And it works. When astronaut Kyle Lindgren took that first bite of space-grown lettuce in 2015, he was proving that humanity could produce food beyond Earth. But Veggie is just the beginning. The Europeans have a system called Eden ISS, which they've tested in Antarctica, basically the closest thing to Mars on Earth. In 1 year, they harvested over 268 kilograms of fresh produce in an environment where nothing should grow. Then there's the work being done by private companies. Interstellar Lab is developing self-contained ecosystems that recycle everything. Your waste becomes fertilizer. Your exhaled carbon dioxide feeds the plants. The plants produce oxygen and food. It's a closed loop. Another company, Nanarax, is working on commercial space greenhouses for future space stations. But here's my favorite. The Chinese actually grew a cotton plant on the moon. Well, on the far side of the moon, inside their Chang'e 4 lander. The plant only survived for a few days, but still, humanity grew something on another celestial body. Think about that for a second. We put a seed in a controlled environment on the moon, and it germinated. That's not science fiction. That's history. And it's not just about space. This technology could revolutionize agriculture right here on Earth too. So how does all this work? Well, the technology is genuinely mind-blowing. First up, hydroponics and aeroponics. Forget soil. In space, we grow plants with their roots suspended in nutrient-rich water or even just mist. This isn't brand new tech on Earth, but in space, it's absolutely essential. Without gravity, regular soil just doesn't work. But hydroponics? It's perfect. The beauty of these systems is their efficiency. A hydroponic setup can produce 10 times more food per square meter than traditional farming. Here on Earth, that's great. But in space, where every single square centimeter costs a fortune to build and maintain, that's revolutionary. Then there's the lighting. You can't just rely on the sun in space. The day-night cycles are all wrong, and once you get to Mars, the sunlight is only about 43% as strong as it is on Earth. So, space farms use specialized LED arrays that provide the exact wavelengths plants need for photosynthesis, mostly red and blue light. It makes everything look purple and a little alien, which is somehow very fitting. But here's where it gets really clever. These LED systems can be programmed to change throughout the plant's growth cycle, optimizing for germination, growth, flowering, and fruiting. It's like having a perfect artificial sun that always does exactly what your crops need. Environmental control is another huge challenge. On Earth, if your greenhouse gets too hot, you open a window. In space, there are no windows to open. Everything has to be precisely regulated: temperature, humidity, carbon dioxide levels, and air circulation. One system failure and your entire crop could die. So space farms use incredibly sophisticated sensors and automated systems that monitor and adjust conditions in real time. It's basically farming meets NASA-level engineering. And then there's the issue of pollination. On Earth, bees and wine do that work for free. In space, there are no bees. So engineers have developed everything from tiny fans that distribute pollen to miniature robotic pollinators. Yes, you heard me right. Robot bees for space farms. The future is weird, folks. But what's really interesting is that all this technology, developed for the harshness of space, is now making its way back down to Earth. Okay, let's talk money. Because this is where space farming goes from a cool science project to a potential economic revolution. Remember that $10,000 per kilogram figure I mentioned? That's the current cost to ship supplies to the ISS using traditional rockets. SpaceX has brought that down to around $2,700 per kilogram with their reusable Falcon 9. Still expensive, but a massive improvement. Now let's do some quick math. An astronaut needs about 2 kilograms of food per day. Over a year, that's 730 kilograms. At current launch costs, feeding one astronaut for 1 year costs roughly $2 million. Just for the food delivery, not the food itself. The delivery, for a Mars mission? You're looking at a 2 to 3 year journey, minimum. That's over 1,400 kilograms of food per person, and you can't just pack sandwiches. You need nutritionally complete meals that stay edible for years. The numbers get insane very, very quickly. But what if you could grow the food there? What if your Mars base had greenhouses producing fresh vegetables, grains, and maybe even protein sources? Suddenly, you're only shipping seeds, growing equipment, and occasional resupplies. Seeds weigh almost nothing compared to prepared food. The entire economic equation completely changes. A study by NASA estimated that for a Mars mission, a bioregenerative life support system, basically a farm, could reduce the launch mass by 50%. 50%! We're talking about potentially saving billions of dollars on a single mission. And it gets even better when you think long-term. Imagine a permanent moon base with 200 people. If you ship all their food from Earth, you're looking at roughly $400 million per year just in launch costs. That's not sustainable. That's not even remotely feasible for a permanent settlement. But if you can grow 80% of the food locally, now you're only spending $80 million on food shipments. Still expensive, but suddenly it's in the realm of possibility. This is why organizations like NASA and the European Space Agency are investing hundreds of millions of dollars into space agriculture research. It's not just about growing a few tomatoes. It's about making space exploration economically viable for humanity's future. But let's zoom out for a moment, because the implications of space farming go way beyond just feeding astronauts. First, there's the psychological benefit. Multiple studies show that astronauts get a huge mental health boost from tending to plants. There's something deeply human about nurturing life, about watching things grow. On a long mission to Mars, where you're trapped in a metal can for 3 years, having a garden to care for might be the difference between sanity and a complete psychological breakdown. In fact, NASA has documented astronauts becoming emotionally attached to their plants. They'll talk to them, check on them in their free time, even give them names. One astronaut described the smell of fresh basil as a piece of earth in the sterile environment of a space station. That might sound silly, but when you're 355 million kilometers from home, a piece of earth is priceless. Second, there's the nutritional aspect. Packaged space food is not great. It's nutritionally complete, sure, but it's not fresh. And there's growing evidence that fresh produce provides health benefits that can't be fully replicated by supplements and preserved food. We're talking antioxidants, phytonutrients, and beneficial compounds that we're still discovering. For long-duration missions, having access to fresh fruits and vegetables could be critical for keeping astronauts healthy. Third, and this is where it gets really interesting, space agriculture could be the foundation for entirely new industries. Think about it. If we can grow food on the Moon or Mars, we can sustain permanent settlements. Those settlements need workers, which means jobs. Those jobs need support infrastructure, which means more jobs. You'd need farmers, technicians, engineers, biologists, chefs. We're talking about the potential for genuine, productive off-world economies. And here's the kicker. Those economies might eventually trade with Earth. I know that sounds crazy. Why would Earth import food from space? It makes no economic sense until you think about specialty products. Imagine plants that can only grow in low gravity, producing unique compounds or flavors. Imagine pharmaceutical crops thriving in the controlled environment of a space greenhouse, free from Earth's pests and diseases. Imagine luxury foods marketed as grown on Mars. Is a tomato from Mars worth more than a tomato from California? Nutritionally, probably not. In terms of novelty and marketing? Absolutely. We might see the emergence of space agriculture as a luxury brand. This whiskey was aged in microgravity. These vegetables were grown on the Moon. It sounds ridiculous, but so did paying $12 for a coffee 30 years ago. And look where we are now. Now here's the twist that nobody saw coming. All this technology developed for space farming? It's revolutionizing agriculture right here on Earth. Remember those vertical hydroponic farms I mentioned? Companies like AeroFarms, Plenty, and Bowery Farming are using space-age tech to grow food in urban warehouses. They're stacking crops vertically, using LED lighting and precision nutrient delivery, growing lettuce and herbs year-round with 95% less water than traditional farming. These aren't futuristic concepts. These are operating businesses, selling produce to grocery stores right now. And they're using many of the same technologies developed for space. Precise environmental control, optimized LED lighting spectrums, automated monitoring systems, and the closed-loop resource management pioneered for space stations. The economics are compelling. A vertical farm in a city can produce crops year-round, regardless of the weather. No droughts, no floods, no frost, no pests, which means no pesticides. And because it's in the city, transportation costs and emissions plummet. A head of lettuce grown in downtown New York doesn't need to be trucked from California. It's grown 5 miles from the restaurant that serves it. But it goes beyond vertical farms. The sensor technology developed for space is being used in traditional farming too. This is called precision agriculture, and it uses satellites, drones, and ground sensors to monitor crop health, soil conditions, and water needs in real time. Farmers can now apply water, fertilizer, and pesticides with incredible precision, reducing waste and environmental impact while increasing yields. This tech was partly developed to monitor crops in space, where you can't afford to waste a single thing. There's even research into using space farming techniques to grow crops in extreme environments on Earth. Think desert regions or the Arctic places where traditional agriculture struggles. If we can grow food on Mars, we can definitely grow it in the Sahara. And that brings us to perhaps the most important implication of all. Let's talk about Earth for a moment. Because while we're dreaming about Mars colonies, we've got some serious problems right here at home. The global population is projected to reach nearly 10 billion people by 2050. Those people need to eat. Meanwhile, climate change is making traditional agriculture increasingly difficult. Droughts, extreme weather, and the loss of arable land are all putting pressure on our food supply. We need to produce more food with less land and less water, in a more unpredictable climate. That's the challenge. And space agriculture technology might be part of the solution. Those closed-loop systems designed for Mars? They use a fraction of the water that traditional farming requires. Those vertical farms that stack crops? They can produce way more food per square meter than a conventional field. Those precision monitoring systems, they optimize resource use and maximize yields. It's not that space farming will replace traditional agriculture. It won't, but it could supplement it in crucial ways. Imagine cities with integrated vertical farms providing fresh produce locally, or desert regions becoming food producers instead of importers. The technology developed to feed astronauts on Mars might end up feeding millions on Earth. There's a beautiful irony in that. We're developing these technologies to leave Earth, but they might be most valuable for staying here. Now let's pump the brakes a little bit because I don't want to paint an unrealistically rosy picture. Space farming faces some serious challenges. First, there's still a ton we don't know. We've grown lettuce and a few other crops in space, but we haven't proven we can grow calorie-dense staples like wheat, rice, or potatoes at scale. There is a big difference between a small experimental garden and a farm that needs to feed a crew. Second, the energy requirements are massive. Those LED grow lights and life support systems consume a lot of power. On Earth, the sun is free. In space, you need to generate or capture every single watt. Third, there's the issue of crop diversity. You can't just eat lettuce forever. Humans need a complete diet, and we haven't proven we can grow that variety reliably in space. Some researchers are working on algae and insect protein. But good luck convincing astronauts to eat bugs 3 meals a day for 3 years. Fourth, there's contamination risk. In a closed environment, a plant disease could spread rapidly with devastating consequences. You can't just spray pesticides on a spacecraft. And finally, this technology is still really expensive. But you know what? Every revolutionary technology starts out expensive and imperfect. The first computers filled entire rooms. The first cell phones were the size of bricks. Space farming is following the same trajectory. It's expensive now, but as the technology matures, costs will drop. The question isn't whether space farming will become viable. The question is when. So let's bring this all together. Space farming isn't just about growing a few tomatoes for astronauts. It's about fundamentally rethinking how we produce food in extreme environments. The economic implications are staggering. Space farming makes long-duration missions and permanent off-world settlements possible. It creates the foundation for genuine space economies. But more than that, it's forcing us to innovate in ways that benefit everyone right here. Vertical farms in cities, precision agriculture in fields, advanced greenhouses in hostile environments, all of this emerged from the challenge of growing food in space. And we're just getting started. In the next 20 years, we're likely to see the first permanent lunar base, and those bases will need farms. In 30 years, we might see the first Mars settlement, and that will absolutely need advanced bioregenerative systems to survive. But here's what really excites me. The lessons we learn farming Mars will help us farm Earth more sustainably. The closed-loop systems could help us address water scarcity. The vertical farming techniques could help feed growing cities. Space farming represents humanity's drive to adapt, to explore, to solve impossible problems. It's us looking at the most hostile environments imaginable and saying, we can make things grow there. And if we can make things grow on Mars, imagine what we can accomplish right here at home. The quest to farm the cosmos is teaching us how to better care for our own planet. We're learning to be gardeners of the solar system. So here's my question for you. 50 years from now, do you think we'll have thriving agricultural settlements on Mars? Or will space farming remain primarily a technology that benefits Earth? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm genuinely curious where you think this is heading. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, hit that subscribe button. We're going to keep exploring the fascinating intersection of space, economics, and technology that's shaping our future. Because the future? It's being grown right now, one space lettuce at a time. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.